So, sorry, we're going to begin with a bit of a pause before we get to the main subject. So, I made a claim where Miriam overlooked the Louis Repetto controversy. So, that will be the theme of this video. We want to be consistent. Kind of yes, kind of no. She did put on her page a community post sharing a video by Shannon and Mandy, and they went into the Louis Repetto issue. So, I want to be fair. She did share the video. She did not note, as far as I know, her compromising relationship with Lewis. These people do know one another. And to be, again, maximally fair to Miriam, the video with her and Luis apparently was on Luis's channel, and Luis has basically erased a lot of his videos. So, how much does Miriam know about Luis? I don't know. But again, just want to get that out of the way to be fair. So, not here to put out false accusations. Now, as far as I know, what I basically said is correct. She hasn't really done anything actively, as far as I know, but maybe behind the scenes she's been helping victims. We'll have to wait and see. So why that long footnote about Miriam? Well, now we're getting a little bit more clarity about the Shelton-Liz Gale battle, which is set for Monday, where Liz will reveal something about Shelton that will be devastating. So what happened? Well, apparently Liz is upset that Shelton used some bad language against certain ex-Scientologists. She didn't name any names, so I had no clue what the hell she was talking about. But through Alonzo and a few other places, apparently one of the people, at least, was Miriam. Maybe Liz means some other people, or maybe not even Miriam at all. She didn't really clarify, but let's assume it's Miriam, so let's work through the issue. So what did Chris say? What did the Shelton speak of that made the ladies so upset? Well, it seems to be two major things. And shocker, I agree with Liz on point number one, but point number two, I think Shelton is correct. I don't agree with the specifics he outlined in his, post on Reddit, but I think the basic charge is true. So two things apparently happened. One is, and again, this is YouTube, we'll use euphemisms, but also he did use the initials. So Shelton called Miriam a POS. Okay, that's not very nice. But then he got into specifics and went on about how, which I think is true, that Miriam has put out some, we'll call it shaky journalism and allegations against Mike Rinder. So let me provide quickly the background for those who are a little confused or coming new into the scene. So Rinder was the head of OSA, which is essentially kind of the spy slash PR wing of Scientology. It does do some brutal, ugly stuff, but it also just does routine bureaucratic stuff, putting out propaganda. And he headed the organization for decades. Miriam is an Australian woman now, but as a child, she was victimized by her father, who was in Scientology. He's been expelled. So Miriam has this big conjecture. It's a little bizarre, but let me work through it because that's the source of a lot of her animus, that she believes that her father was able to abuse her because her mother was sent to the US to work for basically Miscavige. She was doing some paintings. She's actually a very good artist, but we'll put that to the side. So, according to Miriam, Rinder somehow facilitated her mother leaving her, and if her mother had stayed, her mother would have protected her. This is all very conjecture. We don't know that, but that seems to be Miriam's train of thought. So she's been doing a lot of videos allegedly exposing Matt Pesh, Rinder, Claire Headley, and the Aftermath people, so on and so forth. And Shelton is charging her with being basically a cult propagandist. And I agree. Now, why does Shelton say this? Now, Shelton is saying it because he's very protective of Rinder. And I know I'm going to lose some people on both sides. Now, Rinder at the moment is suffering from cancer. And in the past, and this is one of the reasons he left Scientology, he was taken to the Hole. So basically, Scientology at one of their bases had the Hole, which were these two trailers and basically torture camps. And Rinder spent a good deal of time there. So he was severely beaten for a long time. And he was, quote, let out to do propaganda for the cult. He became disillusioned and left Scientology. And at the moment, he's suffering from cancer and trying to get various treatments. Now, do I care that he's suffering? Frankly, no, I don't. He is guilty of many crimes, and he still has to do a lot for victims like Jerry Armstrong. So I don't feel too sorry for Rinder. However, he is in a lot of pain. So I think the main problem with Miriam is her selectivity in helping victims. Now, why do I say this? Well, we're looking at two major cases. I could look at more cases, but I just want to keep this relatively brief because this could go on forever. So when Miriam was beginning to question Rinder, she reached out to Rabbit from Down the Rabbit Hole News to help her out. The problem is Rabbit has a very jaded past. So I'll keep it very simple. Essentially what happened is in the past, Rabbit attacked and victimized several black women, black YouTubers who were speaking about their cult experience. This is not Scientology. It's a different cult, but they are victims, and basically Rabbit pulled some racist attacks on them and tried to dox them. And this has all been documented by Charisma, so I'm going to put a link below. It also can be verified by other people. Ian Rafalco, thankfully, got wind of this. He's been spreading the message about Rabbit's very ugly racist past. So if you don't believe me, reach out to Ian Rafalco. He can verify this. So I'm not sure if Miriam is aware of this, to be fair to her. However, using Miriam's own bad logic, guilt by association, namely if Rinder was an OSA, and OSA is possibly guilty of this or that, Rinder's guilty. Well, by that same logic, given her association with Rabbit, several times, by the way, they've collaborated not just once, she's also guilty of racism and attacking cult victims. Does Miriam really stand by Rabbit now? I don't know, but she has been supporting Rabbit for some time. Now, another case of her doing cult propaganda, and this one is jaw-droppingly crazy. So she did a video with Serge. She actually did several videos. One of the videos is called Mike Rinder's Contradiction. Now, if you go to Miriam's community post, she's sharing a video by Serge. This is a more current video where apparently Serge is going to talk about all the evil secrets of rich billionaire Scientologists. Here's the problem. Serge worked for a Scientology billionaire and made quite a lot of money auditing children. And he tried to justify it saying, yeah, but my auditing was not that tough. It was very basic auditings. And he made a lot of money from this. A lot of money. So Miriam is sharing the Serge video. Is she aware of Serge's iffy past? Well, this, I think it's unclear she can say she's ignorant because Serge has been open-headed. He was one of the biggest auditors in Scientology. And if we look at his record, as far as I know, he left Scientology in 2015. So that means he left Scientology in his 30s. And what was Sergio doing before he left the church? Well, he was hanging out with Hollywood celebrities like the Danny Masterson family. Yes, that's right. He was friends with Jordan Masterson, Danny's brother. So again, using Miriam's own logic, guilt by association, well, Serge associated with the Mastersons. The Mastersons are guilty of, well, we know what they're guilty of. And by the way, this is very normal. Serge was hanging out with a lot of these rich Hollywood celebrities and Scientologists. So it's just not adding up. Again, I understand Miriam is definitely a victim. However, let's be careful here. It's a relative scale. Mike Rinder is also a victim. Now, he's not the same kind of victim that Miriam is, of course. These are all cult survivors. However, let's bring a little realism into this debate. There are children right now. I hate to, some people are going to be upset. I'm going to bring in this issue, but it is a fact. Today, in Israel and in other places, children are being massacred. We have young children. Their bodies and brains, they're being destroyed. Some of these children, entire limbs, they're gone. It'll be a miracle if they can have normal functioning bodies. And the toll is insane. At least thousands of innocent children have been murdered. I don't know if anything Miriam has done for these children. And to be fair, I don't think Rinder's doing anything to help these children. So it's a relative scale. Is she a victim? Yes. Of her father. Is she a victim of Scientology? Absolutely. Could Rinder possibly played a role in victimizing her? Maybe. So I do think maybe she has a legal case about Rinder, but it's pretty tentative. And even then, it would be a civil case. It would probably not be a criminal case. I just don't think she understands how, frankly, American laws work, or any laws work. She seems to have a very amateurish view of how laws work or journalism works, but that is my opinion. And I'm not telling her to stop looking, but I have looked at her videos. They are well edited, and they're entertaining, but in terms of being a serious legal case, she doesn't have any. So maybe she'll find something, maybe she won't. I'm very pessimistic, but I'll keep an open mind. So let's summarize. So basically, Chris Shelton did two things. One, called Miriam a POS. So I agree with Liz Gale that language is not helpful. However, the question is, can a cult expert talk like this? Well, being brutal about it, yes. Him calling X or Y a POS does not take away from his expertise. As Shelton has explained himself in a post, he's already testified in numerous court cases. His professional expertise has been validated in various places. Doesn't matter if he's a nice person. Doesn't matter if he's a mean person. Doesn't matter if he's an angel. That is not relevant in a court. The court judges your professional competence, not if you're a nice person. That's not relevant. That said, I think it's better to not use that language, but that's me. But let's also be not naive here. Miriam is an Australian woman, and I'm not saying all women in Australia are like this. Australian women curse a lot. Okay, let's not be so super sensitive, as does Liz Gale. So let's not be like, oh my God, such language. But still, it's probably not wise to use that kind of language, but that's me. But point number two, is Miriam doing a lot of cult propaganda? And or Liz Gale? The answer is yes. They've been covering up for a long time Aaron's crimes, Rabbit's crimes, and various other criminal activities. They don't care. Now, maybe Miriam is not aware what Serge did. Maybe. Maybe she's not aware what Rabbit did. She has to be aware of what Aaron did. It's been very well publicized. She doesn't seem to care. So it seems her focus is very selective. If you want to see her as a superhero, as Alonzo does, or Liz Gale, that is you. I'm seeing a lot of hypocrisy, a lot of selectivity, and a lot of double standards. But to be fair, Chris Shelton is guilty of the same thing. Shelton has been lying and gaslighting a lot of people, including Alonzo. So there's no hero here, right? Let's be clear. All these people are very tainted and corrupt. But it's a very sensitive issue. And again, we're learning new things. So maybe Miriam has a case against Render. Maybe. So maybe the cult propaganda will produce something. However, it's still being done, I think, in a very unprofessional and very questionable manner. But again, the question is of expertise. I don't see how Chris Shelton is showing he's not an expert. If you don't like the way he conducts his work in terms of his language, so be it. You can criticize it. That doesn't devalue his, quote, expertise, like it or not. So to summarize and conclude, Shelton is saying, one, POS, and two, charging Miriam with cultish practices. With number one, I think Liz Gale might be right. It's probably better to not use that language, but with point number two, Liz and Miriam are just not. They're just not willing to confront Aaron's cultish activities. So be it. Serge's cultish activities. So be it. Or Rabbit's covering up her own racism. So be it. If they don't want to care about these things, that's their life, but it does damage their credibility as so-called advocates of victims. Those victims of other cults are as much victims of Scientology. Again, victims in Israel who are children, they're as much children who are victimized. So why are you not paying attention to those victims? They just don't fit your agenda. So it just feels very skewed, but we'll wait and see if Liz and or Miriam can vindicate their case against Chris Shelton. But so far, it's not looking too good.